We have with us Professor Partha Pratim Talukdar. Professor Talukdar is the Associate Professor in the Department of Computational and Data Sciences at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and also the founder of Kenum. Professor Talukdar would be speaking on the topic knowledge-infused deep learning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Partha. So I recently joined Google Research only from ISC. So the the content of the talk will be mostly work that was done in my group at ISC, and towards the end of it, I'll talk a little bit about what we are trying to do at Google Research Bangalore. But hopefully before I start, hopefully everyone is coping well with the challenging times that we are going through. And I thank Anjali and Ravi for inviting me and having me here. So Gautam's talk actually sets a very good foundation for the topics that I wanted to talk about today. In particular, we'll be discussing about deep learning, natural language processing, and graphs. All of them are post the peak of the hype cycle that Gautam was talking about, but they are not yet on the slope of enlightenment. So there is more work to be done, but there is also some promise. So the thesis behind the talk, today's talk, is that background knowledge is really key to intelligent decision making, and how we could, first of all, gather this kind of background knowledge, world knowledge, and then utilize that inside deep learning solutions. So this ties very well with the need for both perception, which current models are very good at, that Gautam was talking about, and how we could do reasoning. So by using external knowledge, my hypothesis here will be that we can approach at least one way of doing reasoning, and that will become clear as we go along. So just to emphasize this point, we as humans, we do lots of intelligent decision even throughout the course of our day. That ranges from how much force we should apply to lift particular objects, or how we should drive a car, or various buying decisions. And in order to make those decisions, we utilize our knowledge about the world that we have accumulated over our lifespan by interacting with the world and the environment. So increasingly, we are asking machines to make those type of decisions on our behalf, but they don't always have that same context in which you and I operate, and we take it for granted. So that looks like a big disconnect. So we are interested in saying whether we can capture knowledge about the world and then make it available to learning agents. So to make it more concrete, let's say I don't have the time to go and read the daily news. There's a lot of it. And I want a system that will summarize the daily news for me. And such a system comes across a sentence like State Farm stocks tumble along with Berkshire Hathaway. So in order to make sense of this particular sentence, leave alone for machines, for us humans, we need to know that there is a concept called company, two of whose instances are mentioned in this sentence. One is State Farm, the other one is Berkshire Hathaway. There is something called a stock market, and there where these company stocks are traded, and there is volatility associated with all of this, right? But none of that external knowledge is mentioned in the sentence itself, because that's how language is designed, right? So we use language to communicate effectively and efficiently, and we don't want to be telling the whole context, because we assume that there is some shared understanding between you and me when we are communicating this. But in spite of all of that background knowledge, why there might be a correlation between the stock prices of these two companies, that's still not clear, right? But if I showed you some background knowledge of this firm, that Berkshire Hathaway, they have a subsidiary called Heinz, which is insured by State Farm, which is also mentioned in this sentence, then one plausible explanation could be Berkshire's stock prices are down because something bad happens to its subsidiary, and the losses of the subsidiary is going to get passed on to State Farm. So State Farm's outlooks also don't look very good, right? So by integrating this instance and then looking at some external knowledge like this, which is represented in the form of a graph where nodes represent objects of interest and the edges represent relationships connecting them, hopefully our interpretation and analysis of this particular instance or sentence in this case is going to be deeper. So this fragment of the graph, multi-relational graph that you see is a fragment of a much bigger graph, which is what we call as the knowledge graph, which are these entities and relationships. And our hypothesis is that if you're able to build these kind of graphs like an external memory or external knowledge, and then integrate that inside like deep learning agents, then their performance is going to improve significantly. So that's kind of like the main thesis of the talk, which is to say that like deep learning augmented with external knowledge, hopefully in the form of a knowledge graph, is better than deep learning on its own. And I'll try to give you various evidences to support this theory in this talk. So for today's discussion, I will have a broad view of knowledge. And in general, you can think of as like, various types of multi-relational graphs where you have many different types of nodes and many different types of relationships connecting those nodes or entities. So knowledge graphs, which you can think of like a factual representation of this type of a multi-relational graph, is one instance. There are other types, for example, like syntactic information. So dependency parsers will like tell you, given two words in a sentence, if they are related to one another using like certain syntactic relationships, whether one the noun is a subject of the verb or an object of the verb, so on and so forth. There are other types of knowledge as well. For example, temporal knowledge, right? So whether one event happened before or after the other event, or at the same time, what is the recurrence pattern of this kind of event? So that's kind of like another type of knowledge that we can again represent in a graphical form. So for today's discussion, I will just like consider all of these different multi-relational graphs as different types of knowledge graphs and look at how we can utilize them inside deep learning agents. So this is the broad overview of the talk today. So in the first part, so the first question is, if I have purely unstructured data, let's say just like documents, digitized documents, how we can build this kind of, how we can capture the knowledge that's contained inside those documents. So how we can capture the domain knowledge. Then how we can learn some embeddings, right? So instead of this kind of like a symbolic form, can I learn some continuous representations of that knowledge? That's the second part. The third part is, once I have some sort of continuous representations of the knowledge in some, say, vector space, how I could incorporate that inside deep learning algorithms to help improve their performance. So I'll be primarily focused on talking about the part 2 and 3 here, but I'll quickly go over some of the reference pointers for part 1 in case you want to follow it up afterwards. So one instance of building this kind of knowledge graphs from unstructured data is this system called NEL at Carnegie Mellon, where I was also a part of. So NEL stands for Never Ending Language Learning, where the goal of the project was to actually read web documents on a continuous basis and then derive this kind of structured knowledge out of them. And what you see in front of you is actually a fragment of the much bigger knowledge graph that the NEL system built by reading web documents on a continuous basis over a 9-year period. So it's able to figure out that Toronto Maple Leafs is an entity, which is an entity of a hockey team because they play hockey and they have this instance hockey team. Their hometown is Toronto and they won Stanley Cup, right? So this is all actually a real fragment of a knowledge graph extracted by the NEL system. But if you're interested in browsing the whole graph, you can go and visit this URL, rtw.ml.cme.edu, where RTW stands for Read the Web. So that's kind of like the scope of the project. So I'm not going into, or I don't have time today to go into the details of, say, the internals of NEL, but we did have a paper in CACM, Communications at ACM in 2018, where you can learn more about our approach, lessons learned in this space, and like future opportunities. We also had a tutorial on this broader topic of never-ending learning, of which NEL is a particular instance. So this is again related to the learning to learn question that Gautam had mentioned in his talk. So just a related tutorial in ICML and a related tutorial in KDD 2018 as well. So, so I will not go into the details more of like how to build this type of knowledge graphs, but hopefully these pointers give you further references to follow up. So now moving on to the embedding these kind of like multi-relational graphs and knowledge graphs. So we can have two types of two views of knowledge. So one is the symbolic graphical form that I have been motivating so far, where like the entities or objects of interest are nodes in the graph, and the typed edges represent the relationships that exist among these different entities. Then with the advances in deep learning, representation learning, you also have continuous representations of these entities. For example, GM is a node here, but GM is a point in some high dimensional space in this, let's say, continuous representations, which are projected into 2 dimensions for us to read well. So we kind of like think of these as like 2 different ends of the spectrum of how we can represent knowledge. And each one of them have their own strengths and weaknesses. But rather than taking one side or the other, we are interested in how we can go back and forth between these kind of like, from graphs to continuous representations and continuous representations to this kind of like a graphical form. So today I will be mainly talking about how we can go from the left towards the right. So that's the problem of knowledge graph embedding, or like embedding multi-relational graphs in general. And that area has seen quite a lot of work over the last couple of years. So given an edge from the knowledge graph, for example, Barack Obama, president of USA. So in this case, we are interested in learning vector representations for Barack Obama, USA, and president of. There are many methods to do this, so I'm not going to do the details of all of this, but all of them can be uniformly treated because all of them have internally this kind of like a scoring function, which will score positive triples. That Barack Obama, president of USA, that's a true triple. So I will learn the embeddings for each one of these 3 components, so that the score for this true triple is increased, as opposed to Barack Obama, president of India, which is an incorrect triple, the score for that negative triple is going to be reduced, right? So you have kind of like this margin style scoring to learn the embeddings for these entities and relationships. So let's look at how we might be able to utilize this kind of ideas for certain problems. So so one important problem is the problem of canonicalization. So which is to say that if I give you a bunch of noun phrases like Barack Obama, Mr. Obama, Mumbai, Bombay, and Madrid, how do I figure out that Barack Obama and Mr. Obama are actually the same entity, and that Mumbai and Bombay is another entity, while Madrid is the third entity, right? So how do you kind of like do this normalization? So, so one approach could be that, what if we could look at how these noun phrases are mentioned in context, and especially how they are structurally related to other noun phrases. For example, in this case, we find that Barack Obama married to Michelle Obama, and then Mr. Obama is married to Michelle Obama, right? Because these 2 noun phrases are seems to be married to that same other entity, so maybe they should kind of be one entity, right? So this is kind of again, this could be noisy but this could be one way to exploit this kind of structural context in which these kind of noun phrases are occurring. So that's exactly what we try to capture in our model called CESI, which stands for canonicalization using embeddings and side information. So what we do is, given just a bunch of documents from a particular domain, so let's say insurance or medical domain, we extract this kind of like triple subject, predicate, object style triples, which you can very easily do using like open information extraction type of tools. And then from these triples, these are nothing but like edges in my graph. So I create a knowledge graph, right? Which in this particular case, an open knowledge graph, because I don't have the schema up front. And then I do embedding of that graph to represent each one of these nodes as point in some space. And then I do some sort of clustering. And from there, figure out that both this Bill and Bill Gates actually should be the same entity. There are some other details, like we can also incorporate side information. So if you happen to know that was born in and took birth in actually means the same, so then you can also incorporate those type of side information into the model. And we were able to demonstrate that by learning these kind of graph embeddings, we are able to significantly improve performance on this canonicalization task, going from 71.5%, that was the state of the art before our work, we went up all the way to 86%. So this is just kind of like one demonstration of how these graph embeddings could work. So here is a canonical example where we have learned embeddings for all of these noun phrases, and now we are projecting them into two-dimensional space. And it's interesting that we are now able to say that GSK and GlaxoSmithKline, because they are projected to the same part of the space, are actually the same entity. So that's interesting, because if you just did edit distance between GSK and GlaxoSmithKline, the edit distance is going to be very large, right? Because on surface, they look very different. But by utilizing this kind of structural context, by creating a knowledge graph and then learning embeddings for those graphs, we are able to bring these two entities closer together. Similarly, I didn't know that Sakyamuni is another name for Gautam Buddha before looking at these CESI embeddings. But of course, we also have errors. The system also thinks right now that Toyota and Nissan are actually the same entity. That probably is because we don't have much context about these entities represented in the graph. So there are errors, but it also gives some interesting results. So, so that's about one use case of how we can learn embeddings for knowledge graphs and then use them for some important application. But more broadly, there are recent works on utilizing even deep neural networks for the graph, for doing deep learning over graphs. And one such method is called graph convolutional network. So you can think of this as basically applying deep neural networks or convolution neural networks in particular over graph structured data. So in this case, given a graphical structure, you want to learn embeddings on the nodes by aggregating information from all of the neighboring nodes. And you kind of do this in a repeated manner. So, by learning these kind of the representations on the graph, now you're able to make some final predictions about the nodes in the graph. Again, this is a topic on its own, and we had a tutorial in EMNLP 2019 focused on graph neural networks for NLP. So if you're interested, you can go and browse the tutorial here. But just very briefly, you can think of GCNs as applying deep networks over graph structured data. So in our group, we have been doing works on how we can extend GCN style models and then apply them over knowledge graphs. So what happens is when your graph has many different types of nodes and relationships, many different types of relationships, the number of parameters in this GCN model significantly blows up. So in this ICLAIR 2020 paper, we looked at how we can learn these kind of representations in a parameter efficient manner. We have also utilized this kind of GCNs for embedding open knowledge graphs of the form that I just mentioned for the canonicalization application. The most standard form of these graph convolutional networks learn embeddings at a single node level. But then there are many problems where you want to predict properties at a graph level. For example, we work with material scientists where they are interested in applying these kind of graph convolutional networks for faster discovery of materials, right? So in that case, given a crystal structure, you want to predict the properties of those crystal structures quickly. So in that case, you want to predict the property not at an individual node level, but at the whole crystal, which is nothing but a graph. So we have done some work on how we can pool these GCN models, and so that they can work over not just nodes, but also over the graphs and the subgraphs. And we have also applied these GCN style ideas also for protein prediction problems. So what's really remarkable is that the same underlying class of methods are actually applicable, ranging all the way from natural language understanding to material science to protein synthesis. So what I've talked about so far is involving graphs with binary edges where a single edge connects two nodes. But we have also extended GCNs to hypergraphs where one edge actually connects multiple nodes together, right? So there is a work called HyperGCN, which came out in NeurIPS 2019. So this is a very exciting area, very general framework, and that could be very useful in combining graphs and deep neural networks together. So now finally on the part 3, which is utilizing knowledge graphs. So I want to highlight a couple of use cases here. So one problem in natural language understanding and natural language processing is a problem of word sense disambiguation. So where given a sentence like he wore a vest and a tie, you want to figure out which sense of tie is being referred to in this particular sentence, right? Because tie could mean like a neckwear, it could be like tie as in like a match, or like the tie as in like connect to connect one thing to another, right? But of course, in this case, we are looking at the sense, which is the neckwear sense of tie in this case. So so what we did in this ACL paper is that we utilized external lexical knowledge about these types of concepts. So kind of utilizing WordNet style resources in looking at how these different senses are related to one another, whether one is a hypername of the other, right? So there is a graphical structure. So how we can utilize that graphical structure to make improvement on this particular problem. So that's what this is, the EWISE system, which does zero-shot word sense disambiguation. So the key point here is to say that we utilized a knowledge about these word senses and then incorporated them inside a deep model to address this word sense disambiguation problem. I don't expect you to understand all of this, but this is just to high level demonstrate that we are utilizing this external knowledge inside a deep model to improve the WSD task. And we were able to show that compared to other state-of-the-art methods, by incorporating this kind of external knowledge, we are able to improve performance and not only at the full supervision limits, but also able to cut down on the amount of supervision that's necessary. So that's really encouraging. And then in the ACL paper, we also have results on if you look at the rarer words, or words that don't occur very frequently, or the senses that don't occur very frequently, we are able to improve performance on those as well by utilizing this kind of external resources and knowledge. So this is one demonstration. The second one is say if you want to ask questions, right? So of the form who starred in other films made by the director of Titanic, right? So in this case, if you have a knowledge graph, then you will be able to answer these types of questions, saying okay, Titanic is directed by James Cameron, who also directed Avatar, and Joe Saldana actually was an actor in this movie, right? So this would have been a good path to reason over to answer this particular natural language question. But knowledge graphs are like notoriously sparse in the real world. So this important link might be absent. So you may have to like take a longer path of reasoning to kind of like arrive at that final answer. So in this ACL 2020 paper, we basically proposed this embed KGQA model, which is able to work over this kind of like a sparse knowledge graph to answer these types of questions. So again, I don't have the time to go over the methodological details, but we are just able to show that like even for very sparse knowledge graphs, we are able to do reasoning in a multi-hop fashion over the knowledge graph to answer these types of queries. So far I have talked primarily about knowledge graphs in the context of text. But also we have done work in working with combining knowledge with computer vision. And one important problem in computer vision is the problem of visual question answering, which given an image like this will be able to answer questions like how many people are there in this image, right? So while that's interesting and useful, that's not always the type of, the only type of questions we would like to ask. We would like to also ask that, like, I know that this person is Obama, this is Elizabeth Warren, but I don't know who is this person standing to the left of Obama in this picture, right? Or were all of them born in North America? So to answer these types of questions, while the content of the image is helpful, but that's not always sufficient because we also need to overlay the real world identities of these entities, right? So what if you could actually link these entities in the image to their corresponding nodes in the graph and then do reasoning over both this image instance and this external knowledge to answer questions like, whether all of them are politicians, right? So we call this as the knowledge-enabled VQA or KVQA, which very nicely brings together both the perception and the reasoning components together. And we have also released a data set for this new KVQA task, which is available at this link, that has about 24,000 images and about 180,000 plus question answer pairs, all of which will require access to some external knowledge to answer the questions involved. So again, a lot of work to be done here, and we're hopeful that this data set will serve as a catalyst for further work in this area. So that brings us to the main part of the talk, which is to emphasize that learning needs context, and knowledge graphs of various forms can provide that context. We do have good methods and increasingly better methods to learn embeddings for these types of knowledge graphs. And then we have also seen evidences that incorporation of this external knowledge inside deep learning models can help improve performance. Now, very quickly onto what we are trying to do at Google Research, especially in the natural language understanding group here in Bangalore. So one trust area that we are looking at is in multilingual learning. So we are in India. It's a very diverse country, also along the linguistic dimension. So we have about 122 major languages with 1,600 plus dialects. And we don't have good NLP systems for pretty much all of these languages, bearing a few languages with good resources. So we are very interested in how we can develop more effective multilingual learning models, leveraging all of the recent work on multilingual representation learning, how we can do zero-shot learning so that we can cut down on the supervision need and then be able to develop language technologies for all of these different languages. The other problem is around knowledge graphs and representation, motivated by many of the problems that I talked about, and also how we can utilize this kind of more effective knowledge representation schemes even for the multilingual representation learning problem. So we are really excited to be working on these two problems and the intersection. And our goal is to advance the state of language technology starting with Indian languages. So thanks again for your time. So I will stop here. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to address them. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Talukdar, for that very interesting core AI kind of topic, which was pretty much needed. We have some questions pouring in. How knowledge graph nodes is converted to embedding point? What does different dimensions of embedding signify? Then there's another similar question related to knowledge graphs, which is asked by Venkatesh. As in, was the knowledge graph embedding slide that demonstrated an example related to?
Right. Yeah. So that was based on triplet loss. That basically, yes. So basically, like, for each edge in the graph, you basically want to assign some score so that the scores of the positive triples are increased and the scores of the negative triples are decreased. Yeah. So this is based on the triplet loss.
Okay, so there is another question that has been asked, that what is the scope of scalability of building this knowledge graph for any new model application?
Right. So there are, one question is kind of I imagine you're asking about how to build a knowledge graph for a specific domain. And there, the issue is how do you do the whole bootstrapping problem?
Right.
So Nell provided one answer to that by utilizing this coupled learning representation. So I think the idea there is not to, you have to work with limited amounts of supervision, but don't learn these functions in isolation, right? So try to exploit the dependencies that exist among many different functions, and then try to exploit those constraint-based dependencies that might exist among different tasks. So I encourage you to go and look at the CACM paper on Nell that I mentioned. But that's an interesting problem. One approach that we have been taking in our group at IISc is to start with open knowledge graphs by building open knowledge graphs in a schema-free manner from the documents on a given domain, and then slowly move towards the ontological side, by doing various types of normalization, one of which I showed about the canonicalization problem.
Another question that has been posted here is, again, by Venkatesh. Recent multi-head explicit attention mechanism addresses polysemy by embedding a word with respect to other words in the sentence, hereby resulting in different embedding. So basically, this question is regarding the embedding process that you spoke about.
Right.
As BILSIM is used in the architecture, can't we only rely on self-attention for disambiguation?
So self-attention will, is still going to will be restricted to paying attention over the internals of the instance that you're working with, right? And while that's very helpful in learning things in a self-supervised manner, and there are multiple methods, but I think there are benefits to be had by incorporating also external knowledge inside those type of self-supervision mechanisms, self-attention mechanisms. And there are recent works in that direction to show that by incorporating those kind of external knowledge can help improve on top of this kind of self-attention models, like say BERT study models.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to provide pointers offline.
Right. Great. Another question, I think this we can take as a last question because we are just running a little ahead of time. By giving the model the knowledge that we know, aren't we acting as a hindrance in the model's ability to learn knowledge that may not be known to us?
We are not for many cases that this knowledge is going to be automatically acquired rather than manually provided. I mean, there are always questions about bias. It's going to represent the data that you're feeding in. I think all of those problems are always there. But the idea is that if you feel that you can provide some useful guidance to the machine, then its learning path is going to accelerate significantly, right? I mean, think about that, if you didn't have any teachers in your education, and you had to learn everything on your own from scratch by observing the world, whether that will be a fast process compared to the education system that you went through.
So Partha, an issue that comes up is or a question that comes up is the scalability. All these RDFs and labeled property graphs. I mean, these were there earlier also. And the method that you described, maybe a very quick comment on the scalability of these techniques.
Right. So are you talking specific? So one is kind of like the embedding part, and then the other one is like utilizing those embeddings in the learning part. Are you talking about the embedding part?
The generation of the embedding part.
Oh, generation, right. So there are, there have been some work on kind of like learning embeddings for these kind of graphs. So right now, people have been able to scale these to about kind of like, billion nodes. So there is like a Pinterest work out of Pinterest, which is able to learn embeddings in a scalable manner. But by utilizing some sort of like a sampling based technique. So where they, for a given node, they just look at kind of like the immediate neighborhood by doing various types of sampling methods. But that in that case, there isn't, it's not multi-relational. So like, you don't have like too many relations in there. The one of the methods that I talked about in kind of like the COM-GCN, which is like trying to apply like, these kind of like graph convolutional networks for multi-relational graphs is kind of like trying to address the scalability problem from a parameter explosion point of view, right? So I think for multi-relational graphs, I think there is more work to be done, but at least for graphs without relations, there are kind of like the instances of industry scale scalability.
Thank you, Professor Talukdar. This was a very, very, very interesting session.